Something wrong with this governor in New York. I swear to God, I can't understand him at all.
Well, it's good news, bad news, George. The good news is the Pfizer tests look good, and we'll have a vaccine shortly. The bad news is that it's about 2 months before Joe Biden takes over, and that means this administration is going to be implementing a vaccine plan. The vaccine plan is very important, and it's probably the most ambitious undertaking since COVID began. Just to put it in focus, we did 120 million COVID tests in this nation over 7 months, scrambling, doing everything we can. We now have to do 330 million vaccinations, maybe twice. My state does more testing than any state in the United States. We did 12 million tests. We have to do 20 million vaccines. And the Trump administration is rolling out the vaccination plan, and I believe it's flawed. I believe it learns nothing from the past. They're basically going to have the private providers do it, and that's going to leave out all sorts of communities that were left out the first time when COVID ravaged them.
We have a vaccine that's coming. It's ready. It's going to be announced within weeks, and it's going to be delivered. We have Operation Warp Speed, which is the military is going to distribute the vaccine.
First of all, he says that Trump's plan to distribute the vaccine has something to do with the private sector. I don't understand enough about that to get into the details of it, but I do know that I did hear President Trump say during the debate that he has a plan to distribute the vaccine with the military. So I guess that changed. I don't know, or nobody listens.
It needs to be done.
Yeah, the Biden administration, when you deny a problem the way Trump did, you can never solve it. That's true in life.
When you deny a problem, you can't solve it. I mean, that sounds like they're going to find a way to just continually blame every single thing that happens with the coronavirus from this point forward, assuming that Biden takes the presidency, and they're going to find a way to blame it on Trump. This just means that when their numbers are just as bad or worse as Trump's, it'll be Trump's fault. Okay. The fucking hypocrisy of all these people. Mail-in voting is a fraud. I mean, it's really, absentee ballots are different than the mail-in ballots. I'm not going to talk about that again, but absentee ballots in essence are only voting is always supposed to be done in person. That's the primary way. Absentee is just made for certain exceptions. And it's never meant to be the primary way to vote. But we all can agree that the mail-in voting is kind of a disaster. And it takes way too long to calculate. It also opens the voting range to this much time. There's no, you don't just vote on a certain day or in even a certain week. It's just weeks and weeks and weeks this was open. The votes don't get tallied to the end. Who knows where they get stored? But the left sees this as an opportunity to continue doing this to make sure that they win every election in the future. If this isn't the sign of the start of a dictatorship, I don't know what is.
I don't know about you all, but I had to find a new way of voting this year. I voted for the first time by mail ever in life. And you know what? The silver lining in all of this is that our people know that voting by mail is now an option if they didn't know before. We need to make sure that folks are turning out. If people can't show up on election day, we need to make sure that people continuously make sure that they vote by mail.
Not to mention at that same rally where people were high-fiving each other over the Biden victory, the socialist part of them was out on display, but they tried to hide it. I can just imagine somebody said, hey, guys better put away those flags real quick because media's coming. I hate to air any kind of rebroadcast any kind of Saturday Night Live clip, but we've got to take a quick look at the Saturday Night Live imitation of the first debate and what Baldwin does here.
With white supremacy.
Ooh, baby, come to Papa.
Mr. President, I'll ask you directly. Do you condemn white supremacists?
Condemn them? I don't know any. I mean, who are you even talking about? The Proud Boys? The White Boot? The Eugenics Eagles? Yeah. I didn't even know any of these groups. I certainly wouldn't even know how to signal them if I tried.
To this, the President of the United States is literally blowing a dog whistle.
Dog whistle. You know, I understand, as we've talked about this to death too, that he said stand back, stand by instead of stand back, stand down. First of all, you assume that Trump controls the Proud Boys or any other fucking group, which obviously is not a concept that you can have that's based in fucking reality. Second of all, what Trump can't have one verbal gaffe because he said stand by instead of stand down, which he clarified clearly the next day, right? He can't have one gaffe. I mean, Biden's had at least 10 recently that were fucking racist things that he said, but that can get overlooked. Trump, he can't have his sentence structure, his grammar, his speech pattern has to be perfect every single time, and you find one fucking thing, and that means that it's a dog whistle. You know, the phrase dog whistle, in case you don't understand what that means, is like a secret call, right? And that's what they're trying to say that his fucking hand signal was, right? Give me a break. Dude, I've watched so many videos of people speaking since that has been talked about, including Trump. But a lot of people do that, man. That shit, it's just part of something that you do when you talk with your hands. It happens. You call that a dog whistle. This is a real fucking dog whistle. Do you see this tweet? If you haven't seen this tweet, you should go to her feed and you should check it out, because not only is it disturbing in itself, if you read and there's a lot of them, but if you read all the responses under there, you can't believe the amount of people who add on to that and say, yeah, we really ought to do something. I'm already doing this. I've already got them. I mean, they're talking in great detail openly about how they are going to database people who supported Trump. So this starts with them, of course, trying to get people in his cabinet and make their life miserable so they can't get jobs. That's how it starts. And past that, that's not the extent of what it means. I've heard people say, well, this simply means that. No, it doesn't simply mean that. It also means that anybody who supported Trump, anybody who has a Trump sign, anybody who has Trump gear on, or they've seen have it on, from this point forward will become a target in some fashion. You don't believe me? Here's a pretty good example. Just recently, right after that tweet went out.
What happened? I don't know. Get over there. Move on. Sir, please get over there. Move on.
Hey! Fight girls and you fight 7-year-olds. Hey, you ain't doing shit. Stand back. And all these people, this ain't even money. I took this from over to you. That's clear enough. 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 Come over here. What's your name? What's your name?
Wanting to back up.
Shut the fuck up, you stupid bitch! What? That's why you got your ass beat, bitch! Stupid bitch!
There's more. There's a lot more of that, but I can only stand to hear so much of it at one fucking time. But it seems to me that these people, Antifa is here also, and the BLM.
that shit. This is pathetic. This shit is pathetic. What are you laughing having a fucking cowboy hat on? I don't even have time for that motherfucker. God damn it. There's a dude over there. Oh my God. But no, behind the wheel. How come does this make you feel that we are wasting your fucking time right now? Fucking what? How many in here? Fucking 800 of you in here? There's fucking 30 of us. There's 30 of us. Again, David has beat Goliath. David has beat Goliath. And guess what? We are fucking all Goliath. So bring it, motherfuckers. What are you gonna do? Are you gonna let a thin blue line separate us from you? You fucking cowards! You fucking cowards! Raise your hand if you're drunk and you got a vote. Yeah. Raise your hand if you're drunk, you got a vote, you bought your pants at Fleet Farm this morning.
What are you gonna do when I burn this flag in front of you?
Don't burn the flag! Come on, man, you guys look like shit. Hey, raise your hand if you want to be the next Kyle Rittenhouse today.
Just don't get too close.
He's in prison getting his asshole torn out. Come over here, we'll do the same. They're not even wearing a mask. Bunch of bitches. Bunch of bitches. Look at you, motherfucker. Out of her. Raise your hand if you just found out that Biden is your next president!
Seems to me that these people took that quite literally. They went to a private function on private property. Okay, this wasn't something like at an airport rally. This was on private property. And they got on the property and wouldn't leave. And you know what? The police didn't do anything to them. In fact, when there was violence, the police were standing there. The police, along with many other people, witnessed assaults. The police refused, after the assaults were over, the perpetrators of the assaults did not leave the scene. They stood right there, right next to the cops, and the police refused to arrest anybody. The one person who said that they wanted to press charges, the police tried to discourage that person from pressing charges. And from what I understand, up through right now, they wouldn't do anything, but they wouldn't even detain the person that caused the assault. I saw 3 assaults in that video. And actually, there's a 4th one too that I didn't see, but I heard. Here's that. Here's the. Probably declares that they did that, standing right next to the police.
Can you go back behind the car, please? Just go back. It's getting everybody all amped up here.
Hey! Hey, bud.
Stand behind your guy! I'm taking the way! You know what? Put your mask on!
You guys are going through.
Nothing. So this is how it's going to be going forward. I mean, it's bad enough that I don't personally care for, neither do obviously a lot of people, Biden's policies and ways that he's going to fix things. But they've got a system in place where they're going to blame every single bad thing that happens on Trump going forward in the future, even with Biden as president, and they are going to continue to attempt to destroy anybody who supports Trump, because they want the narrative to be Trump lost, get over it. They say they use this, let's do this healing, let's do this to get this healing, let's do this togetherness thing. Well, why would it be my responsibility to heal a volatile situation that you instigated. What am I talking about? Fucking Hillary Clinton. Hillary Clinton really started this. She was and still is so fucking mad that she lost that election. She's the one that started these seeds of discontent. She's the one that championed it anyways. There are plenty of other people that helped out. Pelosi, Schumer, etc. You can just go through the entire list of people on the political left. You can go through the entire list of media, including even recently Fox, who've become a garbage network. I mean, in the scope of a week, they've gone from being the only major mainstream legacy news network to give some, not complete, but some voice of opposition to all the other mainstream media. They've gone from being that to a complete garbage shill in a fucking week. It's almost like they saw the threats from AOC and all of these other Democrats and the other left media and said, oh boy, we're in trouble. We better fucking backpedal as quickly as possible. I really got nothing more to say about this. And voter fraud is always going to occur at every single election point in the country. There's always going to be 1 or 2 or 3 cases of voter fraud. There's always going to be, the exception to the rule that generally there's no fraud. That's always going to happen. What is being talked about now is not 1 or 2 exceptions to the rule or 1 or 2 exceptions to the rule in places across the country. What's being talked about now is a widespread concerted effort to manipulate the election. And forget all the other stuff that would go into that as a evidence of that happening. Like the media being one-sided, the pollsters just creating stuff that's asinine. I mean, the whole reason they didn't want to count votes early, like the mail-in, the whole reason they didn't want a running tally for the country to see, they claim, is that if it favored one side or the other too much, they were afraid it would either discourage people from the opposition voting because they would feel it's pointless, or they feel it would discourage people from the same side voting because they'd figure they have enough of a lead. So it's both ways, it doesn't make any sense. So that, they can say, made sense, but they can't admit any complicity in the fact that by showing polls that were skewed, that helped to skew the election. So, but we're not even talking about any of that. That's what I said. So forget all this other stuff. Let's just talk about the actual day of the vote. You have a significant number of cases of fraud, specifically only in districts, in swing states, and there's no reason to investigate that. There's no reason to talk about, well, let's not call the election until we see how much fraud there actually is. Is this just a couple cases of fraud, or just a couple cases of fraud countrywide, but in one district it was bad, but even with the quantity in that district, it couldn't change the overall election? Nobody's saying that. They're just saying, nope, there's no fraud. There's absolutely no reason to continue. I don't see how that's anything else except for the people who essentially are following what was laid out and has continued to be touted by fucking Hillary Clinton as, let's just get this guy out of here and shit on him and make his life and his presidency and everything he does as impossible as we can. This is all just part of that same thing. The Clintons have fucked this country up bad. They should be held accountable.